Thanks for staying on with us. Still tuned into closing trades. The momentum very much intact. The bulls are in firm control and there's only one direction, and that's northwards that the markets are moving in. A very healthy breath at hand. But let's keep focused then on corporate voices. Hear it out from Shashank Srivastava of Maruti Suzuki, talking about the impact of the lockdown on the company, the inquiry levels as things are easing out, and how they are managing to strategize themselves for a post-COVID world.
Showrooms were open, so the inquiry levels definitely were lower than the pre-COVID by a wide margin. However, in June actually was a much more representative month because most of the showrooms were open. In fact, for Maruti Suzuki, almost 2,800 out of the 3,000 showrooms were open, barring those showrooms which are in the containment areas. So the inquiry level and the retail level as well as the booking level, which is actually a reflection of the demand on the consumer side, are roughly 80-85% of the pre-COVID levels. So that's a good bounce back, I would say, which we have seen in the month of June.
So while we're also picking up from reports that retail sales have outnumbered dispatches from factories to dealership last month, of course, this suggests a recovery in the market. But can you talk to us about whether or not there are still any supply chain constraints that you all are facing?
Yeah, so I think in response to the good inquiry levels, the good bookings and the retails, I think all OEMs are now ramping up their production levels, and Maruti Suzuki is no different. We are also trying to ramp up our production levels.
So would you say that, like many other segments in the consumption space and within Motown itself, your recovery is also largely being led by rural markets? Could you give us a sense of how it's panning out, and how big an opportunity is it for Maruti also to expand its share in the rural arena?
Yeah, so definitely from the initial data, and remember this data is only about 20-25 days data because that's been the normal operation so far. So I think given this caveat, we do believe that there is a suggestion that the rural markets are bouncing back a little better than the urban ones. So if I look at it either way, if you look at the top 40 cities, for example, the negative growth is much higher than the rural areas. As a result of that, the percentage of sales of the rural sales in the Maruti's portfolio is now roughly about 40-41%, which was about 38.5% last year. So yes, there seems to be a better bounce back in the rural areas.
Is there more room for expansion that you see in the rural domain?
Listen, it all depends on how the economy unfolds. Some of the positives which are going in favor of the rural at this moment are that there has been a bumper rabi crop has been pretty good. Even the procurement is going on smoothly. Second is the kharif sowing, which has just begun this season, is actually also very positive. The monsoon in the first month so far is up by almost 20% over last year. So I think these are pointers for very good farm income in the future. And that is also a very positive thing as far as sentiments in the rural markets is concerned. And secondly, the COVID thing, which is, I think most of the containment zones and the red spot areas are confined largely to the urban centers. Those are the two big positive and not so much affecting the rural areas. So I think on those two counts, the rural is positive. A negative initially for the rural areas has been that the remittances from the urban areas because of the labor.
Well, thanks for shedding some light on the rural trend and how strong the sentiment is. But if we look at initial queries and initial bookings, last time, I think in the media analyst call, you were saying that the trend is more towards smaller cars, and that's a trend that you do see unfolding as well in the near future. Would you retain that stance, or has there been a change in trend at all?
Yeah, I think that stance has actually been further strengthened a little bit because now we have data for a larger timeline than what we had when we discussed previously. So I think if you look at the trends in terms of bookings as well as inquiries, there seems to be some which has come in favor of the smaller cars. And that's actually logical also. A lot of people have been commenting on it, and different researchers have indicated a couple of things about consumer behavior post-COVID. And one of them is the shift downwards as far as demand choice goes. So I think that is something which we see very much happening in the current scenario.